Today, I'm going to talk about certain bosses and the hypocrisy regarding the no drug rule. I want to begin with a story about a Lucchese member, Anthony Tardy Tortorello, who at one time was the captain of the Prince Street crew in Manhattan. In the mid-'80s, he was talking to a member of the Genovese family. The discussion turned to Gigante and the no drug rule. Supposedly, Tardy made a comment about not understanding why Chin gets so upset about guys pushing junk, when he himself was pinched for junk and still profited from it. This conversation, unfortunately for Tardy, somehow reached Chin's ears. And as most people know, Chin was someone that didn't even want his name mentioned, let alone having it associated with drugs. So naturally, after hearing what Tardy said, Chin wanted him killed for this violation. He sent Bobby Manna, his consigliere, to meet with the Lucchese administration about his wishes. But the Lucchese family was not about to let Chin and the West Side kill one of their captains. Gaspipe, who had a relationship with Chin, relayed a message through Manna that the Lucchese family was in agreement that Tardy was in the wrong, and that they would discipline their captain by giving him a beating. Surprisingly, Chin accepted this offer. What he didn't know is the Lucchese family was not going to touch Tardy, and they privately agreed with Tardy about what he said. After all, Vicamuso and Gaspipe were formerly in the junk business. So Gaspipe devised a plan that involved Tardy wearing a fake arm cast. He was told to be seen walking around Lower Manhattan with the cast, and when asked about it, he was to say it happened during a mugging. News of Tardy's alleged injury reached Chin, who was satisfied that his disrespect was dealt with. As for Chin, his history is not so clean when it comes to drugs, and this goes back to his 1959 narcotic conviction. Nelson Cantaloupe, a low-level drug dealer, had dealings with members of the Bonanno family, specifically Carmine Galante, as well as members of the Genovese family. In fact, Chin Gigante actually joined them on a drug run. But Cantaloupe became an informant, which eventually led to the arrest of Vito Genovese on July 5, 1958, for a narcotics case. The charges included distributing narcotics not only in New York, but other states as well. Genovese's co-defendants included Galante and Chin and others. Cantaloupe took the stand at the trial. He testified to meeting Genovese, where he said that the drug business was discussed. Although Cantaloupe never did deals with Genovese personally, he was made aware that he was dealing directly with Genovese's people, and that was enough for the jury to convict. In April of 1959, Genovese and 14 co-defendants were found guilty. Vito Genovese received a 15-year sentence, and Chin was sentenced to 7 years. Years later, in the summer of 1965, Cantaloupe was stabbed to death. There's no records indicating if it was retaliation or not. For some time, it's been whispered that years ago, the commission tasked Chin as the judge, jury, and executioner when dealing with members who violate the no drug rule. For example, when Carmine Consalvo, a Gambino member, one who was close to Neil Della Croce, was about to go on trial for a narcotics case, he was tossed out a 24-story window in Fort Lee, New Jersey, in September of 1975. His brother Frank suffered the same fate months later after his talk about avenging his brother's death became known. He was tossed off a 5-story building in Little Italy. Supposedly, both murders were ordered by Chin. The brothers would be referred to as the Flying Consalvos after that. In 1980, Chin called for a Genovese associate named Peter Savino and questioned him about one of his captains, Rosario Sally Young Palmieri. Chin and members of his administration wanted to know if Palmieri was dealing in drugs. They were already investigating him for stealing rackets from Jerry Papa, a member of their family who was killed a month earlier by the Colombos. Savino confirmed both accusations. Subsequently, Palmieri was knocked down from his captain position and shot months later in December, but he survived and went into hiding. Gambino boss Paul Castellano shared Chin's hypocrisy regarding the no drug rule. Back in the early 80s, Castellano called John Gotti to his house to question him about Pete Tambone, a Gambino member who was dealing heroin. Castellano and Chin wanted to kill Tambone, but his life was spared and he was put on the shelf. Castellano then focused his attention on the Gotti crew, specifically Angelo Ruggiero. The FBI placed bugs in Angelo's Cedarhurst, Long Island house, and because Angelo spoke nonchalantly about heroin on the phone, the infamous tapes came to be. And it was these very tapes that Castellano relentlessly hounded both Della Croce and Gotti for. Castellano, without a doubt, knew Angelo was guilty. and I believe he would have had him killed, but he wanted to see who else was involved. As the saying goes, shit rolls downhill. So as a result of Castellano badgering Della Croce about the tapes, Della Croce in turn began putting pressure on Angelo, who was stalling to produce the tapes. And I'll let you hear Angelo's response in that conversation.
Who never bothered me again the rest of my life. I ain't giving up that stuff.
Not only was Angelo concerned about his own well-being, but also the friends of his who were on the tapes. He knew by turning the tapes over to Castellano, he was putting all their lives in jeopardy. I think most people know how all that pressure worked out for Castellano. But here's a further display of Castellano's double standards. Relatives of Carlo Gambino were John, Joe, and Rosario Gambino, commonly known as the Cherry Hill Gambinos, because they lived in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. And if there's one thing besides their last name in which they were known for, it was narcotic trafficking. This was no secret. Everyone knew it, including Castellano. So here's a little fact. Before Carlo Gambino died in October 1976, he chose Castellano to replace him as boss of the family. At the time, the Cherry Hill Gambinos was opening up pizzerias all over New Jersey, and they even ventured into Philadelphia. The Gambino brothers were not only making pizza, but conducting narcotic business in these pizzerias as well. And some of this business took place in Philadelphia. So in 1978, Castellano set up a meeting with Angelo Bruno, the boss of Philadelphia. Castellano, out of respect and courtesy, wanted to discuss the Gambino family's presence in both South Jersey and Philadelphia. It's said that Angelo Bruno gave his blessing for the Gambino family to have free reign to operate, including their drug business, in South Jersey and Philadelphia. The Cherry Hill Gambinos own pizzerias in Philadelphia, Father and Son Pizza on Market Street and Joe's Pizza on South 13th Street. Back then, pizzerias were commonly used as a way to launder money and to conduct drug business. I think most people will find what I'm about to say interesting. Regarding this whole story, bosses like Chin and Castellano, who heavily enforced the no-drug rule, were not doing so to uphold Cosa Nostra law. Absolutely not. They were just eliminating the competition, so their hand-selected drug guys could turn in fatter envelopes, or in this case, larger boxes of money.